It's Rocky Mountain Sasquatch. We are in a Bigfoot sighting hotspot in the Wasatch Mountains of Utah. Most of the activity happens around a string of mountaintop springs over 9,000 feet in elevation near Mount McKinnon. I would like to give you a few of the Sasquatch reports that motivate us to search for the elusive creature at this location. I saw the following Bigfoot sighting report online several years ago and recognized the person's name. I previously worked with the man who had the sighting and his son for about 10 years. I had his son's phone number, so I called and asked Lance, "Was this your dad's Bigfoot sighting report?" He said yes, and told me the report given on the website was incomplete and missing several details. We later got the rest of the report from Larry. I worked with Larry for about 10 years, and neither of us brought up the subject of Bigfoot, and so it was many years after we had worked together that I got the scoop of his scary sighting and encounter. In 1979, Larry Darley was elk hunting with his wife during the fall near Monte Cristo. They had previously set up a blind 50 yards from a freshwater spring. A couple of very large coyotes come down to the spring just before twilight and began to drink nervously. Just as they bolted away, the couple could hear a loud noise and smell an awful odor. Then this large, hairy, humanoid-shaped creature came down to the side of the spring where the coyotes had vacated from. It hunched down and began to scoop up water and drink with its hands. The Darley couple looked at the creature through the scopes of their rifles and watched it drink for over a minute. It then looked directly at them with a reddish glow to its eyes and brandishing large canines. At that point, Miss Darley rushed in the direction of their truck, and Larry followed. They then drove back to their base camp and told friends about what had happened. The next day, the friends went to the spring and found several large humanoid tracks around the spring. Larry and his wife shook up over the experience, did not want to return to the spring, and still avoid that area to this day. This next report happened in the same general area as Larry's. J.R. writes, in the fall of 1998, the sighting happened during the bow hunting season in Utah. I like to hunt the area because of the relative isolation and the numerous deer. I had been hiking around an area known for its springs. I did start out in a general direction, but wove around so much that I did not know exactly where I was at, so it would be hard for me to point out the exact spot on a map. First thing that I noticed was the absence of large game. It is usually a game highway in that part of the woods. As I was wandering, getting totally lost, I noticed a reeking smell and decided to scout out the source. I was curious if a hunter had lost or shot a deer or an elk during the hunt and wanted to see what it was. I would catch whiffs of the smell here and there, and it led me to some sort of a clearing. The area looked like a dried-out pond. The grass was greener in this area compared to the woods, and the only area that had bright sunlight. I scanned the general area, and nothing really caught my eye except for what I thought was a large tree stump almost in the middle of the pond, about 25 to 35 yards from where I was standing in the trees. As I was walking back up the slope, the smell hit me again, and it was coming from the pond area. I looked again and stared at what I thought was a tree stump. It was black, like it had been burned by lightning or fire. The shape was odd. It was roughly pear-shaped and contoured, no jagged edges like a broken piece of wood. It looked like a large person wrapped up in a dark shawl, sitting with their back to me. In this sitting position, it might have been about 4 feet tall. As I stared at it, I decided it was only a burnt tree stump that had weathered smooth edges. But as I watched, it listed to one side. It was then that I thought it might be black cow or a moose laying with his back to me. As I watched, it would shift back and forth like someone getting comfortable in their seat. I also noticed the grass in front of this thing moving as though it was being disturbed. It seemed very intent on what it was doing. I became scared at this point and hurried back up the slope after many wrong turns here and there, and I made my way back to camp about 4:30 p.m. The only other strange thing that happened was the large dog we always took camping and hunting was very jumpy and nervous, and would run off into the wood areas by our camp for no apparent reason, and would stare and fixate on the woods for very long periods of time. The reason I mention this is that this same dog has been on these trips numerous times and has never acted this way. Needless to say, we left at the crack of dawn the next morning and have not been back to the site since then. I don't know if this story is worth keeping because I would not guarantee that it was not a cow or a moose. Although being familiar with cows and moose and seeing moose often, I strongly doubt it was neither of these. This next sighting report was investigated by a friend of mine, the late Todd Strong from the BFRO. He interviewed the following witnesses that reported their Bigfoot sighting near Cave Spring, Monte Cristo. They write, in 1977, my wife, kids, and I lived in Utah. We went hunting in the mountains. We set up a camp a couple of days early for the deer season to start. My wife and I decided to scout the area. As we were going down a ridge line, out stepped another animal. It was reddish brown and 7 to 8 feet tall. It stared at us for about 10 seconds from about 20 yards away. My wife and I turned to look at each other, and when we looked back, it was gone. Later that night it snowed. During the night I heard an animal going around our tent. The next morning there were huge tracks around our tent. After Todd Strong interviews them, he states, these were sincere witnesses very familiar with the area and hunted there with family several times. The witness had seen a Bigfoot as a child in New Mexico and felt a sense of relief that a second witness, his wife, had saw the creature too. The couple were camping only a couple of miles from Cave Springs. There are several more Bigfoot sighting reports in this general area. Two of the more recent Bigfoot sighting encounters in the area were Matthew Anderson's November 2020 encounter and my personal sighting in September of 2021. Matthew's November 2020 sighting was near a place called Sourdough. He thought he caught a glimpse of a black bear from the road, and when he entered the woods, he was faced with two Sasquatch over 8 feet tall, dark in color and huge bodies. The darker of the two appeared younger with a slimmer waist, and the other had a larger midsection and appeared to be graying. It looked at him with a stern, upset face. Matthew backed away from the two, jumped in his vehicle, and drove away. My 2021 sighting was from only 35 feet away near a place called Dairy Ridge. I was going to the top of the mountain to service some game cameras and stopped at a random dirt road to go pee. When I got back in my vehicle and looked in my rear view mirror to back up, it was standing about 35 feet away behind my vehicle. After a split second or two of me trying to absorb what I was looking at, this dark brown creature well over 7 feet tall bolted into the woods. There are dozens and dozens of Bigfoot sightings around this mountain range, including an October 2020 Bigfoot sighting captured on camera near a place called the North Sinks. Hope you enjoyed a history sample of Bigfoot sightings in the area. Keep on watching. We're going to keep on squatching.
Email us with your Bigfoot sighting at rmsobigfoot@gmail.com. The Sink Sasquatch video in Logan Canyon of Utah. We realized after doing a size comparison on location using a man that is 6 feet tall and 220 pounds how large this Sasquatch is. It's around 1 to 2 feet taller than he is and is over twice as wide and twice as thick. Searching in the direction the creature was walking, we discovered dozens of tracks along a creek that are around 15 inches long and nearly 8 inches wide at the toe splay. Amazing video of a Sasquatch when compared to a large man.
6 days after this video was filmed, several people reported seeing a Bigfoot near their camp about 5 miles south near Franklin Basin. Then 4 weeks later, a man comes face to face with two large Bigfoot around 20 miles south on the Monte Cristo Mountain, a place well known for Bigfoot sighting reports. Perhaps one of the two Bigfoot he saw was in the video filmed 6 weeks earlier. 6 days after the video footage, RMSO found evidence of two different sized Bigfoot tracks in the area, one around 15 inches in length, the other 17 inches in length, suggesting two individual Sasquatch in the area. Then, 6 weeks later, when Matthew Anderson comes face to face with two large Bigfoot, RMSO is on the scene within hours, and we find two sets of Bigfoot tracks, just hundreds and hundreds of tracks. One set around 15 inches in length, the other around 17, suggesting that the two Bigfoot seen 20 miles north in Franklin Basin 4 weeks later may be the same Bigfoot he comes face to face with in the Sourdough area. Amazing set of events in a Bigfoot sighting hotspot. I hope you guys enjoy a look at this video. Keep on watching. We're going to keep on squatching.
16. Hit the hill, it's close to 6. Up near the toes, it's 8. That fits.
Well, it comes up the side of the mountain, right over there.
16 again, almost 6, about 5, and yeah, just like the last one. Up near the toe area, 8.
That is true.
What?
I didn't really think about that. I mean, it looks small to me, but then when you're doing it, it doesn't look doable. Well, it's not doable for me.